Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of ARA Unscripted. Today I'm talking to my friend Peace Ike. Peace is a cultural consultant. When she moved into her neighborhood in Philadelphia nearly 10 years ago, she began to see what was a cultural divide happening in the community, and so she took action. What started out as a social experiment of inviting strangers into her home to share a meal evolved into what is now a 6-step, what she calls the Better Method. This is a 6-part relational framework that empowers leaders and teams to overcome difficulties and differences and build lasting trust and healthy collaboration. If you're interested in learning what makes employees shut down and what makes them open up, you're going to want to hear what she has to say. Wade into conversations and you're waiting for signals to figure out where is this person, and so then you feel safer knowing you can say this or say that. You got
it. Yeah. But I honestly think that's my whole life. I mean, I've been an observer from a very young age and a discerner. So often before people even open their mouth, I can gauge where they are. And I use that to kind of work my way into the conversation. But I wouldn't say like safety is necessarily something that I need. It's just more like wisdom and what do they need to hear to meet their specific needs. So, yeah.
Well, Peace, thank you so much. I appreciate you making time to do this.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have a good conversation. So I think what I'll do is just we can start with a little bit of background about how in the world, a girl from Philadelphia knows a guy from Spotsylvania, Virginia. And so I think the first time I met you was in D.C. at Ebenezer's Coffee House. Were you playing for Joy? It was like an album release?
Most likely, yes. Yeah.
So I think I saw a video of Joy playing, your sister, and she was playing a song, and it was announcing an album release, and it was good. And I gathered the family, and we drove up from Fredericksburg and went there, and that was the first time I met you and your sister. And I've just and that's been 8 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys have been to my house, and you've played at my house, and we've had a distant friendship through social media, and I've got to sit back and witness you do some amazing things, and that's what I want to talk about, the things you were doing pre and during COVID, and how that has evolved into what you do now.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell us about Set the Table, dinners and discussion. Let's dive into this. So it started with dinners and discussion, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it started even before dinners and discussion. So there's kind of an evolution of the work I do. And yeah, I'm glad you brought me back down memory lane, because I think it's been closer to 10 years.
Yeah.
That, probably, I don't think probably since I've seen you, maybe 8 years or so.
Yeah.
But we met 10 years ago, and you and your whole family were just diehard fans. Like you were so supportive, and we were so grateful, and we loved coming to your house. It was just like, we knew we'd probably stay the night and get to spend time with the kids, play some games, and you're cooking. That's a whole other podcast episode.
It is.
But we looked forward to your cooking very much so.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, where did all of this start? I would say it started from even before I began doing the dinners and discussions, even before I started the Gathering Place. So much of my life work has been about observing and meeting people where they're at. My career is in physical therapy. I worked with people repairing broken joints, broken bones, from sports rehab to geriatrics, and just really got to sense the need for relational restoration, because like when you're working with people 2 to 3 times a week, you're not just working on their body, they're telling you their whole life story. And so there's that trust built. And so I think in those years, I just developed this desire to really want to help people restore the broken things in their lives.
And you were doing that, like your in was the physical brokenness.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you found yourself going deeper than that.
Absolutely, with all my clients. So I like to say I started out repairing broken bodies, and then God showed me that it was all about repairing broken bonds. And so there was a real gradual shift in the work I was doing, which eventually led me to step out of physical therapy about a year ago and into this work fully, which is I ran a community space for about 7 years. And it started off as a way to really create a third space for people. And for people who don't know that term, it really means like a place to go that's not your home or your office.
It's neutral.
Neutral. And we've lost a lot of that over the years with like technology and AI. Everyone's home stuck in virtual reality.
Yeah.
And so I saw this need and just decided I'm going to create one. So I launched a community space out of my home and began hosting all sorts of events, from open mic nights to movie nights, dialogue nights, and just really wanted the neighbors to find a place that felt like they were stepping into the real world again.
How long were you in that neighborhood before you decided to start engaging your community like that?
Not very long. I moved into that neighborhood, it's called Germantown, in 2017. And when I moved into Germantown, it was right in the height of like the political wars. Because 2016 election had just happened. And Germantown it's an interesting neighborhood. It was actually founded by the Quakers way, way, way decades ago. And Philly is the oldest city in the nation. So, however, over time it became predominantly a black neighborhood. And then in recent years, there's been a lot more mixing, people coming in, newer young kids moving into the neighborhood, young couples, and what people would call gentrification, or just wanting to change things, build up new businesses. And a lot of that's just revival, but also it can feel like a threat.
Yeah.
And so I saw that happening, and I was like, what can I do to speak into this collision I'm seeing happen in this neighborhood? Because that's what I do. I'm like, I'm a fixer. I want to do something about this. And I just opened my doors, and everybody could come. Now you can meet the person that you think you hate. And that's how this all started.
It's so important.
It's so important.
Yeah. And so you started creating this neutral space, and then that led to, so you tried several things. You tried open mic, you tried movie night, and then when did you when did you do your first dinner and discussion? And tell us what that means.
Okay. So I think our first dinner and discussion now was 2018. It was off the books. I didn't start advertising it until 2019. But dinner and discussion was a social experiment, I think I'll call it, where I would invite 10 strangers to dinner, different race, different religion, male, female, different age, and no one knew anybody else. They would sign up because at that point we had a social media. People knew about the Gathering Place Philly, which was the community space. And they would sign up to attend this dinner, and they had to bring two things because it was a potluck. So they had to bring a dish to contribute, and they had to bring one question that they wanted to pose at the dinner table. And they could make that as tense of a question, as tough or polarizing of a question as they wanted. And then when they arrived, they would put that question in a hat. And then we would sit down around the dinner table. We get to learn about each other. I'd ask everybody, tell me a little bit about what you do, what keeps you busy. We go in a circle. And so we're really humanizing each other before we dig into any of these questions. And then once we've established that, hey, we kind of like each other here.
It becomes so much harder to say some of the things you see said on social media when you're looking somebody in the eye and you see the expression on their face, you see their countenance fall because you just said something that's insensitive or whatever. It's so much different.
Totally. That's why breaking bread with people is key, and looking them in the eye, humanizing them. So we go around and then we just pick questions out of the hat, and then we just talk for hours. And the questions were anonymous. So that created like a safety barrier because nobody had to own the question that they put in the hat. And because of that, you weren't attacking the person who wrote the question because you just couldn't.
Right.
So,
I mean, you know this about me. I was so inspired by watching this happen when you did start to put it on social media that I did one.
I remember.
And I think the only sad thing about the one that I did is that it was the only one that I did. Because it was an amazing experience for me. And as a matter of fact, Facebook yesterday reminded me that was the anniversary of that event because it had the pictures and everything.
Wow.
So I think it's kind of cool that I'm sitting here talking to you about this.
Full circle.
But my big takeaway, and I modeled it just the way you did, my big takeaway from that evening, and to this day when I tell people this story, I say, here's what I learned, because I had, like you, I had a very diverse table, and what I learned was we didn't disagree on anything. Should welfare be temporary or permanent? Do you think, this was in 2022, do you think the federal and state agencies are doing enough about COVID? Have you learned anything about the vaccine that has changed your position or your perception of it? These are the questions I remember from back then. And so they could be very controversial. But I remember at the end of the evening, everybody agreed, but everybody had different paths. Like, should welfare be permanent or temporary? My recollection was everybody agreed it should be a temporary. Welfare should be a path off of welfare, but everybody had different ideas about how to get there.
Absolutely.
And I thought that's where the difference is. And I think when people don't stop long enough to talk to their neighbor and do just the things that you've been intentional about doing. I heard you say something on one of your podcasts about how when you're talking with somebody and you hit on something that is one of their core beliefs or something they're very convicted about, their brain shifts. So do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, yeah.
Would you unpack that?
Totally. Like, so many of our disagreements actually, or so many of our arguments don't start in disagreement. They actually start in this fight or flight response. And, you know, we've all been there where someone's challenging our worldview and they're like, well, haven't you heard that 80% of this and that and that? And it sounds like a great statistic and you don't have a comeback because you didn't do the research. And, you know, and then you're like, but this isn't what I believe. And then all of a sudden, you know, you start panicking, you don't have a response. And so in that moment, you're no longer able to think logically because we think from our frontal lobe, that's where our logical processing happens. But when we feel like we're under attack, and this is what studies have shown, that when you're presented with a worldview that challenges your own, your brain reacts as if you're actually being physically attacked, and it cannot tell the difference. So when you feel like you're being attacked, your frontal lobe shuts down, and your amygdala, which is your fight or flight center, it just lights on fire. That causes the cortisol to shoot up, your heart rate increases, you start sweating, and so this is what happens. So oftentimes you feel like you're in an argument and you're going back and forth. You're not actually arguing with the person who can think logically. You're arguing with a nervous system that's in fight or flight.
That's what I heard you say, and I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so important, right, to understand and then recognize that and so talk about some ways people can recognize that. And I know I'm jumping around, but I want to get to what you're doing now in corporate consulting and leadership consulting and things like that. But this all ties together.
Totally.
So, you know, what are some ways, some tips that we could like recognize that and begin to, I'm assuming the proper response is you want to backpedal a little bit because you don't want to, you see somebody going into fight or flight.
Yeah.
And if you're really interested in having a conversation with that person, you want to backpedal. You want to recognize it, and you need to backpedal a little bit.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, once you're already in it, it is hard to stop, to put the brakes on. So you really obviously want to catch this before it happens. And so the tip I give people is that, you know, there's a term called psychological safety. And I think that term kind of gets a bad rap because of another term which I don't like, which is safe spaces. I am not a fan of that term. In fact, I use the word brave spaces. Every time someone's around my table, I'm like, this is a brave space. Because we're going to speak honestly and kindly, but honestly. But, you know, safe spaces just kind of atrophies our social muscles and makes us fearful, and we're not speaking honestly and virtue signaling and all the other stuff that comes with that. Yeah. But psychological safety, I think, is an important term. And that's what we all need to feel that we can be honest. We don't have psychological safety in society because we've had so much political correctness and cancel culture and all of that stuff. But psychological safety is just setting the stage that, hey, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to attack you for being honest. So I think the best way to do that is when you're about to engage in a conversation with someone, start by giving them the first take. It never fails. If I have an issue, I know what my issue is, but I'm still going to come into it and be like, so what do you think about this?
Ask a question.
Yeah.
I have found over the last several years that asking questions is one of the best ways to enter into a conversation, and especially if I'm entering into a conversation because I've been informed something's going on and I need to address it. Could be my personal life, could be in work. something's going on. It needs to be addressed. And I've found that a lot of times in the past, I just march right in with a solution because that's the goal.
Right.
Right. But if you march right in with the solution and you break somebody down along the way, you really haven't solved anything. Well, you might have solved one thing and you caused another problem.
Totally.
And so I've found that asking questions, get the whole story. What's your perspective? So tell me tell me exactly what happened, and you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so many times we kind of march past that.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. We're very trigger happy, you know, and it's unfortunate because so much of just this of society has taught us to be reactive. And, you know, I feel like we're all a little damaged by the world we've been living in for the past, 10 years more.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these things are not, again, they're atrophied. You know, these are things that probably would have been easier to do 15 years ago. And now it's hard to do.
And a lot of people, I mean, there's probably two generations, at least one generation now that just has, it's been difficult for them to learn the communication skills because they're communicating through the phone.
Yeah.
And so understanding some of the stuff we've been talking about, understanding how to ask questions and listen to somebody, and if they're not texting somebody, they struggle sometimes, and not everybody. And this, I'm not meaning a broad sweeping, you know, but I do see that.
Yeah.
And in the workforce, when you've got a lot of millennials in your, one thing that's very interesting, and I love telling people this, is because I did some consulting work a few years back. I was consulting for a company in Austin, Texas, and there was a tech company in the automotive space, and it was almost exclusively millennials, right? I was old guy 10 years ago when I was doing this, right? And I had some wonderfully old guy moments where I think at one time, you remember the Indiana Jones movie with the big ball rolling and he's running, and I was in a conference room full of these people and I was talking, you know, explaining something, and I used that as a reference and I got dead stares.
Yes.
I've never felt so old in my life.
Oh my gosh.
But one of the things I learned from that, and the company had created a very Google type space. They had beanbag chairs, they had, you know, pool tables and fully stocked kitchen. It was an amazing place to work.
Yeah.
I came away from that defending millennials because I learned that, you know, we're being, especially my generation, we're being force fed this narrative that millennials are useless. And then I go there and I go, wait. They are not useless. They work differently.
Yeah.
They solve problems differently than my generation does. They see things differently, and they're unconventional.
Yeah.
And it was a really cool learning experience for me.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty of when the generations can work together well, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
A lot of workforces, corporate spaces don't know what to do with the intergenerational issues, which is why I'm passionate about, you know, company culture coaching, because like the capacity, the potential when you're bringing some of the newer innovative ideas to some of the old, you know, reliable systems, it's like, come on, what better merging of worlds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be a mutual respect. I think the younger generation has to recognize that these other people have been around the sun many more times.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And the older generation has to realize kind of what I was just saying, which was my aha moment back when I was doing that these people see things differently because they have different life experiences, and they solve problems differently than I do. And I think there's a lot to be learned from both sides, but you know, if you come into it closed off, or thinking my way is the best way.
Totally. I don't know if you've heard this term, tacit knowledge. Does that ring a bell? So there's two forms of knowledge. There's explicit knowledge, which is the knowledge you get when you go to Google and you ask them a question, they spit it back to you in like 0.5 seconds. And there's tacit knowledge, and tacit knowledge is the knowledge that you learn through relationship. It's passed down generationally, so like apprenticeship, or just even, you know, from your father, your mother, your grandfather, your grandmother. And now our knowledge is outsourced. Everything, you don't need another human, you can just go online.
Yeah.
And so it's generated this culture that is void of like the messy interpersonal process of learning from another human being. And so if that was happening in millennials, those Generation Z's really, and like they're in a explicit knowledge generation. So we've really lost that.
I think you touched on something about the fact that relationships are messy.
Yeah.
It could be any level of a relationship is going to have some mess to it, right?
Yeah.
And I think what you see is people walking away from relationships as soon as it gets messy.
Oh my God.
And I'm a huge proponent of talking about, when I sit down on an airplane, I sit next to a young person and they're getting married. And how long have you been married? I said, well, I've been married 31 years and I have 4 children and a grandson. And what's the secret, right? So that gives me, that's an opportunity for me to talk about my faith. But what I like to talk about, and not to diminish my faith, it's paramount, but I like to talk about the fact that it's messy and it's difficult. And all of the wonderful things, the vacations, the memories, all of that stuff is icing on the cake. What really counts is working through tough stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's true in friendships. I think it's true in workplaces. Like don't walk away.
Yeah.
Learn how to work through, because in any group, military, marriages, friendships, enduring hardship together brings people together.
Always.
And so the point is that you learn the value of, you don't go looking for hardship, but you learn the value of pushing through it as a team. It's not me against you. It's you and me against the problem.
Absolutely.
And I think, it's sad when I see people of all generations, right? They throw away marriages, they throw away friendships, they throw away jobs because they deem the mess not worth it.
Yeah.
It's an intrusion.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Distance has become the number one method of conflict management, which is not a method at all. But there's actually studies that show, there's like workplace studies even, what's the number one conflict style? It's like 75% avoidance. And there's collaboration, there's win some, lose some, but no, 75% avoidance, might be higher than that. But definitely in our relationships, we're a very self-protective society now, and it's all, this makes me uncomfortable, so it's bad for me, this is toxic, and I don't want to downplay relationships that can be harmful,
Sure,
because we know they exist, and I've had to navigate many myself, and I think that we've lost the line, though, between what is true harm and what's just uncomfortable. And like you said, healthy conflict is necessary for growth. Harmful conflict is a thing. We want to avoid that, but conflict itself is not harmful.
That's my lead line when somebody's asking me about having a marriage for 31 years. I say, learn how to fight well. They go, what? It's a shock line, right?
Yeah,
learn how to
totally.
fight well.
Yeah.
The bottom line is you're going to disagree.
Totally.
And you want to, if you win your point, and my wife has been broken down a little bit, like I said a few minutes ago, what have I won? Right? And so you just have to learn how to interact and disagree and work it out and talk it out, be respectful, know that the person that you're debating is somebody that you want to talk to tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. What's priority, the relationship or the argument?
My father used to say it's not always it's not always the most important to be right.
Yeah.
Like, not that you're not right, but that you prove yourself.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's like the relationship should be more valuable than the point.
Yeah. Oh, good. So good. There's 2 things about being right that just made me think of. Is number one, that we can be right and be wrong at the same time. Something else that I've talked about a little bit is that, your point could be completely right and maybe even righteous and needed, but if you're giving it in a condescending way, if you're spitting it out in anger, if you're using it as a weapon, then you're actually wrong.
Yep.
So what's the point of being right and wrong at the same time?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is just knowing when to give up your right to be right. Sacrificing that, being okay with just knowing it and not having to prove it.
I had to learn that. That's a lesson that I've had to learn in the last few years with my kids, which I can talk about because they'll never watch this.
That's unfortunate. Maybe they'll watch this episode because
they will. They will. Yeah, you know what? But so as with any, most, I won't say any or every, but it's not uncommon that you raise up your children in a certain mindset, and you try to instill the things that you believe, because why wouldn't you? And then they have different, they go in a different direction.
Yeah.
And that can create conflict.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had to learn a few years ago that I can't die on every hill, or I'm not going to have a relationship, you know? And so you just keep your mouth shut sometimes.
Yeah. Have you found that in a full circle way, those things have kind of come back, you know, in a positive way for you, or there's been something redemptive?
So, I don't know if this is exactly what you're asking, but it reminds me. So I've had a couple of my children, now that they're grown up and they're starting to experience other people's families intimately, you know, they come back and they go, yeah, we're not so crazy. I've seen crazy. We're not crazy.
Totally. Yeah.
Which is that's fun.
Yeah.
And the other thing we've done successfully is we've kind of ruined our kids for the holidays. So they want to be at our house.
Yeah.
Like I like to cook, right? And we celebrate. We have a lot of fun together. And so now they're going to, you know, somebody else's. They'll go to somebody else's house, and they'll be like, "Oh, I just really want to come over."
So, yeah,
I said to Michelle, like, we ruined them good.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
So you did. You started doing the dinner and discussions. How long did you do that? Are you still doing it?
I did them for about 7 years. Last year was the last dinner and discussion I had because I made a major pivot, which is what I do now. So the dinner and discussions were just so successful, you know, like I'll say it until the day I die. We never had a fight. 7 years of doing these, not one fight. I mean,
how many do you think you did each year? You know, 7 years of doing it.
Well, I probably did about 4 or 5 a year.
Okay.
Spaced them out. Well, I'll say every other month, maybe 6 maximum.
Yeah.
So I'm not good with math. 6 times 7 is that 49? I could be. But yeah.
This is not a good combination, you and me. I married an accountant because
yes, you did marry an accountant. See, I stay away from numbers.
Yeah,
wholeheartedly. But yeah, so do the math on that, and
it's a lot, and no arguments.
It's a lot. No arguments, no fights.
That's beautiful.
And I mean, I had, you know, the anti-Trumpers sitting next to pro-Trumpers, you know, like, and able to have a conversation.
Of course.
They're telling us this can't be done. Oh, yes, it can be done. And it's all about the environment that you create. The atmosphere that you set, the atmosphere of honor, establishing ground rules and, you know, expectations. You do all that stuff in the beginning, then you don't have to really manage people's behavior because they're now aware of their own behavior. This is why, I mean, we might touch on this later, but this is why I created a company culture training as I'll say an alternative to DEI, because I feel that when you manage people, you're never going to get the outcome you desire. But when you pull out the best in them, now they have the incentive to be the best version of themselves. You don't get the virtue signaling, right? So we can touch back on that if you want.
We don't have to wait.
Well, let me tell you about what I do, and then maybe we can step back into that. But so yeah, it was this beautiful experiment that really became the antidote to what we were seeing happening all around us in the world. And so it hit me that I can't just keep doing this just in my community space. It's literally a drop in the bucket.
Did you see the impact of those evenings? Was there a ripple effect? Did you see it in your community?
I don't know the answer to that because we started getting people from so many different places all throughout the city. We had people driving up from Lancaster, you know, so I don't know what they took back. I know they left change.
Yeah.
Did they continue with that process in their relationships? I don't know. But I can say this, I kept new friends. I have new friends from doing that. And these are friends that normally I wouldn't be friends with, but we're friends because we sat down and had dinner together.
Sure.
So I'm a living testimony that this leaves a lasting impact, you know, and
I think the dinner table is a sacred place.
yeah, it was so sacred.
It really is.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it really is.
You could talk about it for a long time.
Yeah. I have this whole, I mean, I kind of say like turn your dinner tables into altars. These are places of worship because our lives are, again, we're talking about faith a little bit here, you know, just want to say how I view it. For me, I've had more holy moments around my dinner table than at church, you know, just being with people. And just having that presence be charged with the goodness that being with people can bring and what God can do in those moments. I'm just like, come on, y'all. What are we doing?
I've been a business traveler for about 15 years, and the most special moments of traveling for work are there have been a few times where somebody has invited me into their home and made a meal, and I get to sit down at their table with their wife and their kids and have a meal. One of the most special ones, I was in Atlanta, and a buddy of mine from Brooklyn, we were traveling together, and he says, hey, my aunt and my cousins are, he's Jewish, right? But he's not a practicing Jew, but he's Jewish. And he goes, but they are, they're, I can't remember the term. I can't remember.
Orthodox or
Orthodox.
Okay.
So he says, my aunt, my cousins, they're here. They're Orthodox Jews. They would like to have us for dinner. Are you up for it? I go, heck yeah, I'm up for it. And we went. And I remember sitting down. Of course, he briefs me. You can't touch them. You can't shake their hand. No problem. And so we go in there, and they made it was taco night. I'm not sure how they did that, but it was great. And his cousin or his aunt, her name was Esther. And when she introduced herself to me, I commented. I go, that's literally one of my favorite stories in the Old Testament, which launched an hour and a half of us kind of not quizzing, but like inquiring and just curiosity about, because they knew I was a Christian, and they're like, so from a Christian perspective, what? And we had this amazing conversation.
I love it.
And that was a long time. It was 8 years ago or something like that. I'll never forget it. It was one of the most beautiful nights I've ever had.
Absolutely. Magical things happen around food.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
Oh man. So this was such a special experiment. The antidote to what's happening in the world. I was like, okay, we're gonna take this out from this space. That's when I launched Set the Table, which is the organization I run now, which is basically a coaching and consulting agency that comes alongside leaders and teams and helps them overcome their difficulties, their differences, helps them collaborate better. Focusing a lot on ministry leaders, because sometimes we, of people of faith, don't know how to engage with what's happening in the world. And for me, I've always felt the secular and the sacred for me are one. Like, I'm going to be my same self, whether I'm going, meeting you in a bar or I'm meeting you at church.
Yeah.
And I think as believers, if we could embody what it means to just, carry God with us wherever we go and be normal, like not be weird.
Yeah.
We could have a way bigger impact in the world. So I love teaching.
People love it, right?
Oh my gosh.
I know that people have said it to you, because I've heard it the same. They're like, all right, you're a different brand of Christian.
Totally. You're like, you're kind of cool, actually. Yes.
Yeah.
So I just love coming in and like teaching ministry leaders and their staff how to do what I call missional awareness and discipleship training. So that's what Set the Table does. It's just helping people learn how to speak gracefully and be salt and light in the earth, and have your environments be productive and fruitful and not just warring all the time.
So how do you see that translating into a secular corporate environment? And do you have you faced that? And for somebody who might be watching this going, well, I'm not really a church guy, or what, somebody watching might say, oh, maybe this wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But it probably is.
Listen, everyone, I believe, needs company culture training. I mean, literally, it's a soft skill thing, and that's why a lot of workplace leaders overlook it. But then they have problems within their staff and their team, especially like middle managers who are just overwhelmed with like spats happening within their team, and they don't know what to do because human, like we do, people are messy. And so when you get ahead of that and you establish a healthy culture in your workplace or your office or your corporation, you can avoid so much unhealthy conflict. So this doesn't matter what you believe. I mean, I can't imagine one workplace leader that doesn't need or face, these kind of differences within their team. So
because the workplace is basically a little version of what we're experiencing out in the world.
Totally.
Because it is people aren't assembling workforces based on ideology.
Yeah.
It's like, can you show up?
Totally.
Do you have the aptitude to do this job?
Totally.
Your ideology is literally, they're not allowed they shouldn't be asking you about it
Totally.
during the hiring process.
And we kind of stepped into that world a little bit, so we can go back onto this DEI topic that we touched on a little bit. But before I say that, I'll say this, that one of the reasons I call my company culture training non-prescriptive is because I don't think people really want to be told how to live their life when they come to work. Mm-hmm. Now, I might believe there's a best way to live, and of course you might too. And hopefully we embody that in how we treat others and how we engage with others. But people are at home. They got their wives telling them how they got to be. They got their priest and their pastor telling them how to be. And they come to work.
Some of the kids are trying to tell them how to be too.
And they come to work and you're wagging your finger and telling them this is what they got to think and how they got to do. Yeah. And this is why, and I won't crush the whole thing. I think there's a root of righteousness. Like everything that tries to address a problem has a seed of righteousness. And I think that DEI really wanted to help, even out some things and kind of smooth over some inequalities and things like that. But what happened is that, and you can see this statistically, that it didn't produce environments where people felt more open and honest and more collaborative. It actually did the opposite, where people began to be more resentful in the office space. And that is because you can't produce real transformation by micromanaging. It never works. It doesn't work as a parent, you know that, and it certainly doesn't work as a boss, CEO, or a workplace leader. But if you can tap into what motivates people to be their best selves at work, everybody's got a motivating factor, whether it's maybe it's just finances. They want to save up for retirement. Okay, good. I mean, they're coming to work every day and they're doing their best. Who cares what their why is?
Right.
Or maybe they want to further their learning and get better, advanced in their career, in their field, and build a resume. Or maybe they're really passionate about the job. When you touch on each person's motivator, you're going to get the best version of them coming to work every day. And they're going to bring that best version into their interpersonal relationships so that the project gets done and that the work gets done, the deadlines are met. I don't know if we know how to do that in our workforce right now.
Yeah, how does a middle manager or an owner, how does he get to, because if I'm hearing you're saying it's important to understand their why. Yeah. How do you get to that? If I've got 15 employees, or some of the people I work with have 40, 50, 60 employees. How do you address that?
I say ask them. And now it might sound too easy when you got 60 or 70 employees, but there is some kind of feedback loop, I would hope. Yeah. And when there isn't, and I've seen that too, that's typically when you have the grumbling, the mumbling, the dissatisfaction, and low employee engagement. So whatever that feedback loop is, that why has got to be incorporated into that feedback loop. If your employee is there and their why is that they want to increase their skill set, and there's nothing on the job that's offering them opportunities to get better at what they do, and they feel like they're just coming to work as a robot every day, you're going to lose them. Yeah. Employee retention is going to go down the drain. It's vital to know your employees' why. Even if you got 100 of them, put one line on your employee engagement or follow-up that you do annually or quarterly, whatever your model is, and touch on that every time you have that meeting with them. One of the big shot ways is to do a training. People hate trainings because there's tons of compliance involved, and there's like the forced fun. We're gonna have a pizza party. No one likes forced fun.
Everybody likes pizza, though.
Hey, there you go. But if you're going to have all these compliance trainings, because you need them, whatever field you're in, make one of them about company culture. 2-hour training. There's ways.
So you transitioned after 7 years. You started Set the Table, and now you're doing corporate and leadership consulting and development, right?
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Yeah, it's been great. I've been doing more ministry leadership consulting. Mm-hmm. It's a space that I'm very familiar with, and I have a lot of relationships already built in the city of Philly. Done a lot of ministry in the city for years. So I've been brought in. I had a very interesting consult about 2 weeks ago with a church that was facing division in their congregation.
I heard you. I watched a video you made about this, and leading up to this, I thought, there's so much about what you're doing in the ministry field that's fascinating to me and needed. But I also kept thinking, okay, how's this going to translate? How's this going to translate? Yeah. So this whole conflict came about after the Charlie Kirk assassination.
It did, yeah.
And I thought, oh yeah, this definitely. You're going to have people who work in a building
totally,
and they have the same diverse, completely different reactions to this. So talk about that.
Yeah. Well, right now I've been working with a home health care agency who's having issues with employee dissatisfaction on the job. Here's the difficult thing is that corporations don't like to get political, and it's a hard thing to address because workplace leaders have enough problems. They don't want you coming in there and stirring the pot about like who voted for who.
Right.
And so I'll be honest, it's been a real uphill climb to bring awareness to workplace leaders that emotional intelligence, which is a proven soft skill that boosts collaboration, boosts productivity by like 22%. It's been an uphill climb to get workplace leaders to understand that when you build an emotionally intelligent crew, they're going to naturally produce better. So this isn't like a back end thing. This is actually a front end thing. So with my coaching for this home care agency, I've been doing one-on-one coaching with their employees. It's been employees who have had some difficulties with productivity, having emotional issues that are keeping them from being able to do their job well, meet their deadlines. And so I do one-on-one coaching with their clients, and then I go back to the workplace leader and we recap and put in like a feedback measurement for that client. So it's not quite political, and I think I prefer that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would rather. I tell my clients, what is the problem that you want to address, and I'll come in and help you with that conflict. Now, I do these trainings. They're like 2-hour trainings divided into 3, depending on the environment, depending on the workplace. Their needs might be, some offices don't have the time to set aside for these,
Sure.
2-hour trainings. So, okay, maybe you can only dedicate an hour. We'll do an hour this week, an hour next week, and an hour next week. So maybe your lunch break, we'll do a training. And so we come in and we go through this process. I developed a framework called the Better Method. Mm-hmm. And it's an emotionally intelligent framework. And it's not faith infused. I mean, it has a faith grounding because that's who I am.
That's where you're coming from.
That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
But there's a non-prescriptive version of it.
I just want to press pause on this. I want to hear the rest of this. But before we get too far down the road, you've used the phrase emotional intelligence 3 or 4 times.
Oh, yeah.
Let's define that.
Totally. Yeah, that's good. Emotional intelligence is the ability to be self-aware, know how you're perceived, know how to respond. And to be authentic, And so there's actually a couple components that go into it: authenticity, self-awareness, self-regulation. So keeping your emotions intact. If you get a bad review at work, you're not going to go around and stomp your feet and be an 8-year-old, but you're going to say, okay, this is constructive criticism. How can I apply it? And then conflict resolution. If you have an issue with a coworker, an issue with your boss, how are you going to respond to that issue? Are you just going to avoid it, keep quiet until the anger, is pent up and then you have an outburst? Or are you going to go knock on the door and be like, hey, can we talk? So that's emotional intelligence. It's basically how you navigate the world socially with self-awareness and self-regulation.
It would seem to me that so much of a person's life experience pours into if they are and how much they are emotionally intelligent.
Totally.
And then can you train somebody out of a poor EQ? What is it? Emotionally?
Yeah, it's EQ.
Can you train them out of that?
You can. Yeah, you can actually change EQ. And there's also studies that show that. They do like an EQ test before EQ training. Then they do an EQ test after EQ training. I mean, people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And, as a workplace leader, you hope that your employees are going to come with a certain level of maturity. But you can't always anticipate that. And when you're hiring, everyone's looking for IQ. Can you do the job?
Right.
They're doing these job tests. They're asking you, like, do you know the answer to this? Can you give me a proposal for this? They're testing your IQ, but we're not trained to test EQ. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. So then you have an employee that you're so excited about because they blew it out of the water, and then they get in the office, but they don't know how to talk to their coworker.
Yeah. Yeah, and I work in an industry that has a lot. It's primarily blue collar, and you're a lot of times you need somebody to come in and do a task.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to disassemble a car. I need you to tag these parts. I need you to everybody's kind of part of an assembly line process, and to you may emotional intelligence. It would be really helpful, I think, for people in my industry to understand, especially leadership, to be able to identify it and address it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wish I knew the stats on this, but there's a statistic that the World Economic Forum did, and it said emotional intelligence is going to be the #1 leading workplace skill by 2026. And it proves why, because when you have an emotionally intelligent, not just employee, but team, they're going to work better together.
Yeah.
And then, your bottom line is going to go up.
Yeah.
So,
So we were talking about the training classes, and then I interrupted
Yeah.
you so we could kind of talk about emotional intelligence. But you say you do these classes.
yes, and they're based in emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Yeah. So the corporate non-faith-based version
Right.
is EQ. And I'm speaking faith-based. I usually don't use EQ. I use something like, I don't know, spiritual discernment or something like that.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a 6-part method that I developed called the Better Method. And each one, literally BETTER, stands for something. B is be real. We address authenticity. E is embrace discomfort, how to have awkward, difficult conversations.
Wait. When you talk about be real, authenticity, do you have to address? It's something I get accused of. I can be very direct, and so it's authentic.
Yeah.
But it's not always soft.
See, that's going to come into the self-awareness module, which
Gotcha.
is T, testing your thoughts. Like, how are you perceived? Do you know how others see you? Are you kind of like, everyone loves me? No, they don't. And I mean, there are methods, review tools that you use. I love the DISC. That's the one I do. And, if you've heard of the DISC, if you've been in corporate world, most people know that the DISC is it's a tool to help people figure out what kind of personality type
Right.
they are at work.
And that's an acronym as well, right?
Yeah. Dominant, I is influence, S is steady, and C is conscientious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So the Better Method, that's an acronym. So B is be real, authentic.
Be authentic, and that we include motivators in there, because if you don't know why you're coming to work, then you're not going to be real at work. You
Yeah.
got to know why you're here. And then E, embrace discomfort, conversation, social skills. T's, test your thoughts. How do people see you? Do you know how people see you? Do you know how you're being seen? Do you understand yourself? And then next T is track your tendencies. That's all about self-regulation. How do you do with feedback? If your boss sits you down and says, hey, you need to improve on something, is your ego going to flare up, or
Right.
can you understand? Yeah.
You think you're perfect.
You think you're perfect. Exactly. Extend grace.
There it is.
Oh, yeah. And it's the most important one for me, especially in the society we're living in.
Sure.
It's judgmental society. And so, your snap judgment reaction about someone is often wrong. And so teaching employees, okay, if my coworker came in, maybe they're having a bad day, it's not about me. What could be going on at home? Maybe they got in a fight with their wife. Yeah. And so extending grace, and then finally is recognizing risk. So that's conflict resolution.
Extending grace. I remember many, many years ago, I was working at a grocery store, and one of the managers who I did not like, not many people did. He was, for a lot of reasons. But I'll never forget, he gave us all this talk, and it was about assuming good faith.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of what you were
Yes.
just talking about. It's like extending grace. Like,
Yeah.
let's not assume that this person, if you have two ways to perceive what's been said to you, and one of them is negative,
Yeah.
that person meant this negatively, or one of them is positive or neutral, just assume the good one until you really know.
Yeah. Until you know,
Yeah.
because you don't know.
Because you don't know.
Yeah.
And like you said, you never know what, extending grace goes beyond that and says, okay, I know this person just, treated me poorly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's typically not the way they are. And
Totally.
let's, maybe there's something going on, like you were saying. Maybe there's
Yeah.
something going on at home or whatever.
Yeah. I think we're too obsessed with, oh boy, this will get me in trouble, but with empathy. And here's why, because I'm all about empathy. So people are going to hear this like, what are you talking about? Like, empathy is part of my Extending Grace
Sure.
module. I teach it. But we've been told so much that we have to understand what someone's feeling in order to respond with care. But you don't.
No.
And often you can't. And so that's why I think grace is just paramount. Because grace is unmerited. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what they're going through. It
I
doesn't
don't
matter
have to
if you feel it or
understand.
if you understand it.
Yeah.
It's just because, I'm going to give you that benefit of the doubt, and I'm just going to give you something that I don't think you deserve, but I'm going to be the bigger person.
So you go through these trainings. At what point do you remember? Was there a point when you were going through this training with somebody where you realized this wasn't just training. There was transformation
Oh
happening.
yeah, totally. Yeah. So I did. There's a training I do called Conflict to Connection, and it's not fully corporate, but it's not ministry or faith based. It's a political and cultural training. So anybody can take it who just wants to unpack polarization and learn how to engage better and manage that. And pre-training, before going through these modules, we do an engagement or like a survey, kind of determining where they are right now and how they see their relationships. With the person that you see you have the least in common with, what are your feelings towards them in this moment? So we do that at the beginning, and then after the 4-hour workshop, we do it again. And there was a 40% decrease in judgment and bias in just 4 hours. So, and I mean, I remember this class that I'm thinking of, and this one person had come in, and I've been following her a little bit on social media, and you know, she was not having a she was engaging in a lot of disputes on her wall. Okay, so I knew she had very strong opinions, and that's one of the reasons I invited her to this. But by the end of that, it was her score that had dropped by 68%. Wow. The 40% was the average of the entire room. So honestly, I always say people don't know what they don't know. They don't recognize how they see others, how they're seen. They don't recognize the forces that want them to be at odds.
Yeah.
And, education
That's a lot.
is important.
That's a whole nother,
Yeah.
another conversation. But
Yeah.
when do you typically see, as you go through the better method, correct? Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
The better method?
The better method.
When you're going through that, do you typically find that you get to a certain point and this is when most people have an aha moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what is it?
It's the test your thoughts. Yeah. Where we go over the disc and personality types, and then people are like, that's why people respond the way they do to me. Like self-awareness is the biggest aha that anybody can have. You know, we have how we desire to be perceived, and then we have how we think we're being perceived. And often there's a huge perception gap between the two.
Yeah.
If you can merge those two together, you're going to be so much more successful in life. You're going to be a better leader. You're going to have better relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's just the way it is. I know. I think for men, like I see the world. I feel 27 years old. Like I never stopped seeing the world through those eyes.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Now, obviously, I process things differently, but then when I stand up and walk across the room, my body's like, no.
Perception gap.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking when you were talking about the perception gap.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you think are some of the most common overlooked, undiagnosed things in a corporate culture that could be fixed?
I think the biggest thing that leaders overlook is employee dissatisfaction. And I think that's a large umbrella term, but oftentimes leaders don't make space for employees to express the things that they don't feel are going well in their world. Feedback loops, I guess, is the biggest thing that's overlooked. There's nothing in place for an employee to feel that they can express something that's not going well. And that can be, a lot of times there's these apps that corporations use where you can go and leave. It's almost like it's like an app for anonymous feedback. Mm-hmm. You can go in there, or some places use a box, like old-fashioned box, and you just put your thing in the box, and then they have a meeting, once a week and answer those questions. But there has to be something in place because there's, again, perception gap. Leaders think that everything's going fine. Employees think that things are not going fine because no one's actually talking about those things. So
I know of a couple of businesses, and they're both run by Christians, and one of them got the idea from the other one, and now they both do it. They've hired a chaplain.
Oh yeah, that's so great.
And he does not report to the owner. Mm-hmm. He shows up once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And he just walks around.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to talk, they go to a place and they talk privately, and he's just there to help them with their spiritual health, right?
Yeah.
Because they have health insurance for their physical health, and
Totally.
they have all the guidelines to keep them safe and doing their job, and this one leader, he was inspired to do this, and now another person I know is doing it, and I think this is something that's gaining some traction, and that even from a secular perspective, if you didn't want to bring in a chaplain, just to bring in somebody,
Yeah.
I think mental health in the workplace.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of people may be looking at their business and going, it's kind of like that's what the paycheck's for, right?
Totally.
That have that mentality. But people can't. People can't just leave all their baggage
At home.
You just can't.
Yeah.
And so I think we're entering into a time when employers being sensitive to that and trying to put something in place to give their employees somebody to talk to.
Totally. Yeah, it feels like you're describing basically open door policy. And I know a lot of corporate leaders feel like they can't accommodate that because schedule wise, it's just like things are too busy. I can't just have people coming in my office whenever there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so I think that chaplain idea is brilliant, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
In a similar way, with the healthcare agency that I've started partnering with, they basically set up one-on-one coaching sessions with me. And they're just like, air your grievances to peace. And then what I do is I go back and I report back to leadership on how it went. And of course, it's not just about the grievances. It's also about things I noticed, that maybe areas of growth or concern. So I'm basically a middleman.
You're a mediator.
I'm a mediator. And another agency as well, I'm now doing quarterly employee, you can call them coaching sessions. It's not quite a review, but it's something in the middle. They're fusing review and coaching in one. So it's kind of like I'm also helping and advising these employees if they're having areas of friction on what I think they could do better, but I'm also taking their own grievances back to their boss. So
cool. What do you think is a common corporate Band-Aid that doesn't really stay and stick and have lasting results? Do you see corporations making they just kind of we'll just do this and that'll fix it? It doesn't get to the root cause.
Yeah, totally. I would say forced fun is one of them.
We were talking
about earlier.
Yeah.
Like, people are happy, so let's just throw them a little party and have an after work happy hour. And it's like, well, it's not mandatory, but like it's not addressing any of my needs either. So why am I taking more time away from my family to stay out later after work? You know?
Right.
So.
Yeah. I'm irritated because so-and-so's got such and such hanging in their cubicle and it offends me, and you want me to come out and have drinks?
Absolutely. Yeah. It doesn't,
and you think that's going to fix it?
Absolutely not. Yeah. So definitely force fun, but then also, like I mentioned, inclusivity training, and so people have real grievances, but they're not being asked what those are. They're being told what they need to do, change, or fix. So
people are scared to ask those questions.
Oh yeah, they're definitely scared.
It's going down the rabbit hole.
It is.
You want to talk to somebody about, what's going on in their world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand. Like, again, work isn't always the place for that. And again, the chaplain idea is brilliant. But there's got to be some place for people to express what's hindering them from bringing their best self to work. Because there's something, and if you don't know what it is, you can't address it.
Yeah.
So.
Quiet quitting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. That's
right?
a trend.
It is a trend. I don't know if it's still, it seems like it was being talked about a lot last year. Do you see this? And by the way, I think you do. I know you do a lot of ministry work, but I don't know what the statistic is, but there's a lot of people in ministry who are part-time ministry, and so they have not real jobs, but they have other jobs, right?
For sure.
So you're bringing in these skills in under the ministry, but these are people who work jobs, and so they're taking this stuff and they're bringing it to the workplace as well.
Absolutely.
So I mean, have you seen, do you address like how do you identify quiet quitting? What should a leader do if they suspect it?
Yeah. That's a big, I hate to use the word trend, but it kind of is, even like it's a fad word or fad phrase.
Well, tell us what it is and then tell us how you would recommend identifying it and how to respond to it.
Yeah. So quiet quitting is when your employees haven't quit literally. They're still coming every day, but they're doing the bare minimum. And they're not being responsive. Maybe they're not responding to emails. They're not meeting deadlines. They're basically it's almost like they're trying to get fired. And the trend is more common in the younger employees, probably millennial and Gen Z. And so, it's just a response to a multitude of things: burnout, satisfaction, and you name it. And during COVID, people were working from home, and then when offices were trying to get employees back in, a lot of people didn't want to come back to the office. Sure. And so you saw a lot of quiet quitting happening then too. And when it's already happening, again, a lot of these things are hard to address when the gears are in motion. Yeah. But when you see that happening, that's when you really do have to put a marker in the ground and say, hey, can we meet? Can we have a review? What is it that you feel like? What is it that's making this job what makes you unsatisfied here?
Right.
Yeah.
It's a red flag of dissatisfaction.
Absolutely. Yeah. What's making you unsatisfied here? And maybe it's something that if they're saying, well, I want to make, $50,000 more a year, and you can't meet that. Well, like, now you know what you're dealing with.
Sure.
And maybe they're not going to be someone you want to hold on to longer.
Yeah.
But if it's something that can be addressed, then it would be helpful to know. So, yeah. Okay. I guess the bottom line is communication, right? Communication is, it's like the number one principle in all conflict.
And listening.
Active listening.
You primarily here in Philly, or you travel when needed?
Travel when needed, primarily here in Philly.
Okay.
So, I've got some exciting things coming in the spring. I was able to do a speaking engagement at University of Pennsylvania recently.
Nice.
So cool. Got to speak to a room of fellows in their communications department and teach about my method and some of the things I've learned in just dealing with people, what makes people shut down, what makes people open up, and impart that to the fellows. And so it was such an impactful teaching that I'll be able to come back in the spring and do some workshops.
Outstanding. That's
I'm
cool.
excited about. Yeah.
What does make people, what do you see that makes people shut down?
Yeah, coming on the attack and a lot of that psychological safety thing that we were talking about earlier. Yeah. And what makes people open up is curiosity. Everyone wants to talk about themselves. Yeah. You'll never lose asking someone a question about themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I remember learning once that when you give somebody a chance to tell their story, it oftentimes opens up a door for you to tell your story. This was literally an evangelism training that I went through, and been through a few of them. And I remember that one. It was all about, and people will hear this and think, it's evil, right? Because now you're being manipulative. No. It's, you're just building a relationship, but you're building it on a good foundation. Like, let's ask them questions and find out who you are. And then eventually you get an opportunity because you've invested.
Yeah.
And now you have a chance. And it's no different in the workplace. Yeah.
People don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
And it's the age-old adage, but it's so true. Some of the best workplace leaders I know are leaders who are showing that they truly care about their employees. And they're asking them, like, what do you need? They're making time, whether it's a weekly Monday morning meeting before the week starts. Hey, how are things going? And what do you guys need this week to make it better? Simple thing. And a lot of times, sometimes you may not have an answer, and that's great for you. And maybe it's like, oh, I'm good. But the fact you asked is going to leave the impression.
And if they say something that you can't readily produce, I think being transparent and letting them know that.
Yeah.
I still think there's some merit in that, and I still think you get some credit for that with your employee, because I don't know is not a bad answer.
Yeah.
And
again, honesty, authenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Are you still making music?
Oh, music. It takes me back to the days that Joy and I, my sister, were traveling and just really sweet memories. Well, I'm a worship leader. So the answer is yes, even more than before.
Gotcha.
But it's in a different format now, So probably 2 times a month I'm leading worship somewhere and I get a lot of joy out of that.
Awesome.
Yeah, maybe one day there will be a return of the Ike sisters on tour. We'll see.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
So, do you have any questions for me? Like you had expressed an interest early on when we were emailing back. You were like, I want to know how you connected the dots between,
Yeah. And you told me you were starting a podcast. I was like, doesn't he work with cars?
Yeah.
So I said, like, can you connect the dots on this? Yeah. So
I just see this as another way to communicate.
Yeah.
And so in my role, a big part of what I'm doing with the trade association is getting the message out of what we do. And so part of what we do is training, and we provide training for our industry. And this topic came up about corporate culture, and I was like, ding! I think I know who I want to talk to.
Totally.
So yeah, I think things like this are I've had a couple of conversations with some other people, interviews with some other people who are in the industry, right? And people will tune in and they'll know, oh, well, that's Jono and that's Greg or whatever. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to bring. This is a space that needed an outside voice, right? And so that's why I thought this would be good.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, you're exposing your audience to different components of real life, and that's very helpful
because they're encountering it every day.
Absolutely.
Right? They're going into work, and some of them may not know, like they know their situation isn't perfect, and they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. People skills make the world go round.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the foundation of every single sector and sphere of society, but they're often paid the least attention to. And that's why people call them soft skills. But when you master soft skills, you've mastered the art of influence, impact, relationship building. I mean, I believe people with people skills, that's kind of a broad umbrella term there, but are the happiest people.
Yeah, I agree with you.
They have the best relationships.
They have a genuine curiosity about their fellow man.
Oh, my God.
Again, going back to curiosity, which is what? Questions. I enjoy that. I enjoy the time I get to spend. Here's something that you don't hear people say. I love airports.
Yeah, me too.
I spend a lot of time in airports.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I love airports.
Yeah.
I love sitting next to strangers. I love talking to them and asking them questions, and they ask me questions, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying. I like to talk about myself.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I think it's important, and there's a lot of people who, I think one of the things that makes me sad is when I hear people say things like, I don't need any more friends, or I have enough friends, or I don't like people. That's kind of common now.
I know.
Like people are literally saying out loud, I don't like people.
It's terrible.
I just want to go home and be with my cat, And it makes me sad because, again, kind of like learning how to fight well in a relationship, you're missing out on so much. Like
totally.
Other people's experience and input and influence into your life is so enriching. Doesn't mean you have to do everything or believe everything you hear or see.
Yeah.
But it just is it seems like a missed opportunity.
Oh, yeah. I think relationships are seen as disposable now, and that makes me very sad.
Me too.
There's I haven't watched it yet, so I never want to speak about something that I don't fully have full knowledge of. But there is a podcast or some kind of special that Oprah Winfrey just did, highlighting what they call, there's a word for it, it's like going cold or something, but basically when you cut people out of your life altogether.
I think that's a growing trend among young people.
Yes.
With their parents, with their family.
And that was a big part of this series, or I don't know if it's a series or just one episode. I will watch it, and I probably have some words to share on my own podcast or so. But a lot of them was children, and with such like carefreeness, I've been 5 years, no contact. That's the term.
No contact.
5 years, no contact with my parents. And hey, I don't know how terrible your parents were.
Right.
I mean, I believe in some extreme cases that's probably necessary. But this again was being talked about like it was just this like solution to every problem in the world and this trend and everyone's so happy. I'm like, what's going on now? Relationships are not disposable. You cannot make memories again. Like you can't redo your first 30 years of life.
And isolation is not a cure.
Absolutely not.
You know, if you're isolation to avoid triggers is I see people doing this and thinking it's the solution.
Yes, yeah. And thinking they're healthy now.
Explain why that's not a solution.
Right. Oh, well, I mean, if you think you're healthy because nothing is triggering you or there's nothing there poking you, then you're actually not healthy. You're just, again, isolated. And so
it's
what
not
happens
too different
when
in the biological world, is it?
Oh, yeah, for
like
sure.
you strip away all, you know, if you cover yourself in Purell.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
you're eventually not going to have any immune system. You need something pushing back, fighting, and then your body fighting back against it. Same thing with your emotions. And,
yes, and that's why I dislike the term safe spaces. Yeah. Not healthy at all. No. So, yeah.
Well, tell people where they can find you.
Yes, they can find me at setthetable.org. And then really, I lead people to my website because all of my workshops and offerings are there. But they can also find me on Instagram, which is actually more my culture stuff. And I comment on kind of how we do politics well and how we can do relationships better. So not so much corporate. Yeah. My social media handles are, I'm trying to do the cool thing. I know I look young and I know I am young, but I'm 40, but I don't feel as young as I look. So I'm still trying to learn like how to speak the language that like social media world will like push and the young kids will watch. All that to say.
Imagine how I feel.
I know.
I don't look young. I'm not young.
Right. It's a hard knock world out there.
It is.
So for those who are interested in more of my politics and culture stuff, and I have a faith bend to that, they can find me on Instagram at Set the Table Official, YouTube at Set the Table Official, and my personal Facebook. I post a lot of personal thoughts, and it's public. So I tell everybody just find me, Peace Ike, and click follow. But LinkedIn is where I post more of the corporate work I do or any of the training work I do, and that's at linkedin.com/ I think I don't know, but the handle is Peace Ike Connects, so you can find me on LinkedIn there.
And then give me a brief rundown on the on kind of the menu of corporate training.
Yeah, so we offer a corporate training that can be broken down into whatever structure you need based on your how your office or your timeline is laid out. So if you have the availability to do one shot training, we'll come in and do like a 4-hour workshop. Not a lot of people have that time to spend. But in that workshop, we'll go through the better method. We'll take time. It's interactive. So I'll teach and train, and then I'll give the staff or the employees or whoever I'm training opportunities to engage the tools. So they come away with practical tools that they can begin using in their workspace relationships. And so a lot of places will say, okay, well, I can't do a 4-hour training, but we can do 2-hour this week, 2-hour next week, and then we'll break it up that way. So, and then I leave them with some homework. If you don't have a feedback loop, we're going to put one in, a contract even that it's like, we will handle conflict this way. And it's kind of like something that they can all agree upon, that when something arises, this is what we're going to do about it. I mean, they're very basic things, but you'd be surprised how many offices don't have things in place when these things arise. So, yeah. And then before we do all that, there is an employee engagement survey because you kind of want to know where your employees are starting.
Get a baseline.
Get the baseline. And then after the training, there's another survey, but I give it time. So we're going to do 3 months out. You've put the feedback loop in place. You've put the tools in place. People are doing these things, we believe, we hope. And so by the 3rd month out, we should see a change in your employee engagement survey. So we'll touch that again and see how that's doing. And I just encourage leaders to keep an eye on their KPI and all that other stuff. I mean, and things are going better in the workplace, you should see the results changing in your bottom line.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm so glad that I had a chance to come up here and sit down and talk with you. I really appreciate you making time for this. You've always been somebody I've really admired, and musically at first, and then all the social engagement that you've embarked on has just been really encouraging to me personally. So thank you.
I thank you so much. You've been super encouraging and like super supportive.
Yeah.
And I got to say, like in this era,
you mean everybody's not supporting?
Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, and this is an outrage era. People love to just stay divided and stay angry, and they see someone doing something positive to kind of like bridge that divide. And I'm telling you, like, I just got haters. I have haters just because I'm trying to do something positive.
You know, I was thinking about landing the plane, and I am going to land the plane, but I do want to touch on. I just realized this. I want to talk about how, like, you're doing very positive work. We've just wandered into this. You're doing really positive stuff. Like, your whole thing is about encouraging people and helping them be a better version of themselves, right? And yet you encounter resistance. Why?
It's so crazy to me.
Or I think I heard you say one time that you, and this was recently, I was listening to one of your podcasts, and you said that you were catching grief because you weren't conservative enough for your conservative friends and you weren't liberal enough for your liberal friends.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody just wants to win. And it's unfortunate because it's the moderate voices that get the most heat. And now I am a conservative thinker. I'll lay that out. And I've swung. You know, I used to be very liberal, and then I kind of, as I gotten older, I've moved to more conservative. But it doesn't change the way I'm able to listen and hear people. You know, and so as a moderator, which is really what I do, what I was doing on my podcast, I have to take a role that allows people to be heard.
Yeah.
And people don't like that because you're not making a point for their case.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's just, you can't win.
You gave a space for the opposition.
Absolutely. You platformed the opposition. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I actually stopped doing those episodes. My podcast started out as this thing where I was doing something called the table exchange and bringing people from opposite ends to come and have a conversation. Yeah. And I stopped doing those episodes because I just felt like they weren't fruitful. It was almost like people were too childish for those episodes.
That's too bad.
That's how it went. And so,
was it the people you were bringing together,
no,
or it was the people who were listening?
It was the listeners, and I made sure I actually said this on one of my episodes that the people I was bringing were amazing. Like those episodes went really, really well. Very kind, civil, graceful. Yeah. But then, like, everyone's, giving their feedback. And it's not that you change what you do based on how others respond. But if what I'm putting out in the world isn't producing something helpful in others, then I don't want to contribute to that. And I was getting people being frustrated and so I truly felt like people weren't mature enough to sit down and listen to both sides. And I kind of shifted my episodes to long form interviews where people could get lost in the stories and understand people's why better. And I felt that those were better. So that's where I've been with the podcast.
Good stuff. All right, then. Well, thank you so much. This has been fun.
Thanks for having me, Vince.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's my pleasure.
Talk to you again soon.